Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you today. A plan for peace in Gaza said to be closer than ever.
We're at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close.
The pledge is made, and what happens next?
We need Algoma Steel to survive and thrive.
What a financial lifeline means for a sector steeling itself for more pain.
These schools were a mistake, and they shouldn't have existed.
Plus, righting a wrong for a group of overlooked survivors.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Israel's prime minister was at the White House today meeting with the U.S. president, talking peace for Gaza. Afterwards, the two leaders held a joint press conference and announced a ceasefire proposal for the region. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon was listening in. And Joy, the two men agreed to a framework for peace. Now they're waiting for Hamas to respond. So go over the details of what was discussed.
Yeah, Sandy, it's sounding a lot like a take-it-or-leave-it deal to Hamas. President Donald Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister both took to this stage to announce details of this 20-point peace plan. Hamas would have to give up its guns and release all 20 living Israeli hostages and the remains of the dead within 72 hours in exchange for hundreds of detained Palestinians. President Trump, he likes to call himself a peacemaker, but he left no wiggle room, demanding that Hamas demilitarize and accept this deal.
I hope that we're going to have a deal for peace. And if Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, they're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
Okay, Joy, now analysts are saying this is the first time that we're seeing Israel agree to terms, including handing over territory to an international force and then an independent post-war governance. So what was the Israeli leaders' response to this?
Well, you're right, Sandy. This does appear to be the first time that Israel's prime minister agreed publicly to a peace plan. Benjamin Netanyahu even apologized to Qatar's emir for Israel's deadly airstrike on Doha, targeting Hamas in a White House phone call, promising that it will never happen again. Now, Qatar is a key player in the region, and Trump is counting on them and other Arab states to help broker this peace that would cut Hamas out of governing Gaza. Netanyahu also had a warning to Hamas. Have a listen.
If Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way. But it will be done.
President Trump seems to have the backing of the Saudis, Jordan, the UAE, and Egypt. His proposed peace plan is now in the hands of Hamas leadership. Sandy.
Okay, Joy, as always, thank you for this. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand called for Hamas to lay down their arms and release the remaining hostages when she addressed the United Nations this morning, and she raised Canada's role at a time of multiple global crises.
In the face of these stark realities, retreat is not an option. Canada will not turn inward.
Anand also spoke out against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, calling it a grave breach of the UN Charter. Well, a gang accused of carrying out murders, arson, and acts of extortion and intimidation against Canadians has now been designated by Ottawa as a terrorist entity. Last year, the RCMP accused India of using the Bishnoi gang of terrorizing Canadians, especially those calling for the creation of a separate Sikh state. India has denied the claims. The listing allows authorities to seize property and freeze accounts and means Canadians won't be able to aid or finance the group. We are learning more about the shooting death of a Canadian man killed while on a golf trip to Wisconsin. The suspect, arrested and charged with first-degree reckless homicide, made a court appearance today. CTV's John Venevali-Rao has been watching this story closely. And John, take us through what happened today.
Sandy, the accused is a DoorDash driver, and while police have not commented yet, the circumstances surrounding the shooting are becoming clearer.
You have the right to adjourn.
The accused made a video appearance in a Wisconsin courthouse. 35-year-old Luis Cruz Burgos read his rights using a Spanish interpreter and charged with first-degree reckless homicide in the death of Mike Robinson, who grew up in Stouffville, Ontario, and who'd been on a golfing trip with friends and family when things went horribly wrong. A murder that stunned locals.
I'm shocked. I don't even really know what to say.
This was Robinson last week celebrating a hole-in-one. Afterwards, he and 3 other men went to celebrate at a bar in Sheboygan, which is north of Milwaukee. A criminal complaint lays out how Robinson and the others tried to get an Uber back to their hotel at around midnight, and failing that, approached Cruz Burgos, a DoorDash driver, for 9 months and tried to negotiate paying him for a lift. Police obtained surveillance, picking up the sound of their interaction. One man said he wasn't going to give the driver $40 for 5 minutes of work, and they walked away. Another man said Cruz Burgos drove off, but then doubled back. That's when he heard a pop and Robinson say, "I'm dying." The 32-year-old passed away from a single gunshot wound to the chest. His wife gave birth to a baby girl just 6 weeks ago.
That charge has not been proven yet.
In the criminal complaint, Cruz Burgos claims the men called him stupid, and one of them flipped him off, and he says he didn't shoot anyone. In court, authorities said he has no known criminal record. A GoFundMe set up to support Robinson's family has so far raised almost $250,000. Sandy.
Okay, John, thank you. And police are calling the shooting at a church in Michigan that left 4 victims dead and 8 injured a targeted act of violence.
Evil. This was an evil act of violence.
The suspect was identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, a 40-year-old former Marine from a nearby town. He is accused of crashing his vehicle through the front doors of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then shooting and setting the church on fire. He was killed by police. Well, Ottawa and Ontario offered one of Canada's major steel companies a lifeline today after Algoma Steel, along with others, were targeted by Donald Trump's tariffs. CTV's Rachel Aiello now on the loan and how it's meant to be applied. Hi, Rachel.
Sandy, Algoma is Canada's last remaining independent steel producer, and the government said today that this financial lifeline is tied to the company's desire to find new markets and to make new products. And that retooling in the face of tariffs isn't cheap.
The federal and provincial governments are loaning this Ontario steel plant $500 million.
I think the critical part of it is it gives us the liquidity to pivot our business towards the future of Canada.
The bulk of the financial support, $400 million, is the first to come from a program Ottawa launched in March to help Canadian companies affected by Trump's tariffs. That money and the other $100 million the government of Ontario is lending is to help Algoma afford new equipment and retrain its workers, as the 50% tariff from the United States has effectively closed off what has for decades been a key market for this and other Canadian steelmakers.
If we don't have Canadian-owned steel companies, then we are vulnerable to the whims of other countries, other markets, and we can't have that.
The steel sector has already seen more than 1,000 layoffs since the trade war started.
The prospect of more is growing every day.
Both the minister and the local MPP framed the loan as an investment in Canadian industry.
We are fighting to protect a company that is truly a Canadian institution.
But the federal Conservatives said they'll be scanning the fine print.
Mark Carney is repeating the same Liberal talking points of the last 10 years, claiming that when he borrows and spends, it is an investment.
A federal official told CTV News today that Algoma is so far the only steel company in Canada to apply for this funding. Its CEO estimated today that it could take 18 months to 2 years for Algoma's plans to pivot to a domestic market to fully materialize. Sandy?
All right, Rachel, thank you. Let's bring in CTV's chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. Okay, Amanda, as Rachel said, Ottawa's earmarked $10 billion to help companies struggling with tariffs. So now we've got $500 million going to Algoma Steel. Where might the rest go?
Well, some might stay in the steel industry. This is the large enterprise loan facility, so you need revenue of above $150 million to even qualify, and you couldn't have been in trouble before the tariffs. Those are sort of the key criteria. You could look at others in the industry, and that would include, true, not fully Canadian, but there are others, Stelco, ArcelorMittal. Look to the aluminum sector. Alcoa is one name that comes to mind. And in fact, Sandy, others outside of these two sectors might also qualify, including parts makers affected by those auto tariffs. So think Magna and Linamar, manufacturers like Bombardier, who are hit with downstream costs from steel and aluminum, and even in the resources sector, a name like Nutrien or Teck, which faces some copper tariffs. All of those could qualify, but there is an application process that they have to go through, and they have to meet some relatively strict criteria.
Okay, so these are loans to help weather the storm. You know, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? We're in dark times right now, it appears.
For sure. A little bit of good news today. I mean, Deloitte Canada has an outlook that says the back half of this year won't be as bad. We will skirt a recession. And I will say, in terms of what's happening today with this loan to this company, they're using it to actually invest in new technology, a new electric furnace that they were pivoting to anyway, but that will make their operations more nimble. And so it's not just an investment to tide them over. It's actually an investment in a better operation and a better future, Sandy, which is sort of what you would hope for when you're putting tax dollars to work.
Okay, certainly more encouraging. Okay, Amanda, thank you. Well, Donald Trump is now threatening a punishing tariff on all movies made outside the U.S., claiming the industry has been stolen by other countries. On Truth Social, the U.S. president wrote that California has been particularly hit hard and that a 100% tariff will be imposed on any and all movies made outside the states. Last week, Trump also said he would put a 100% tariff starting October the 1st on pharmaceuticals unless the drug maker builds a plant in the U.S. Now, a drug that holds promise in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease isn't available in Canada, not because of tariffs, but because we are the lone country in the G7 not to approve it. CTV's Heather Wright spoke with a patient about his experience and the drug he can't get. Heather.
Well, Sandy, there is a great deal of frustration knowing something that could help is out there, but out of reach.
You can start to see these hot spots here.
About 3 years ago, Morley was diagnosed with mild Alzheimer's, almost by accident. He had fallen while skiing, and his wife, Margot, encouraged him to see a specialist.
It was serendipitous that they took a PET scan and found out that there's this amyloid in the brain.
Since then, he's been doing everything he can to keep his symptoms mild.
I'm not drinking, a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, good sleep, but I would like to keep the functions that I have as long as I can.
There are drugs that could help slow down the disease's progression. They are approved in 44 countries, including every member of the G7, except for Canada.
These new therapies bring new hope because they can actually modify what's going on within the brain.
Dr. Sarah Mitchell is a neurologist at Toronto's Sunnybrook Hospital and says it's difficult to explain to patients that treatments exist, just not here. And while these intravenous medications, lecanemab and donanemab, can't cure Alzheimer's, Mitchell says they are an important first step.
The data shows that actually those patients in these trials that receive these drugs had a slower rate of decline of about 30% compared to a control group.
These drugs are not without risk. Side effects include fever, nausea, and in some cases, swelling of the brain. And they only work for patients whose disease has not progressed too far, like Morley.
It's best to have the care for Morley here in Canada. That would definitely be the route I'd prefer. But if that's not available to us, we will have to consider perhaps the United States.
It's not clear why it has taken Health Canada more than 2 years to review and approve these medications. And while they won't comment on the status of medications under review, in a statement, Health Canada says it will only approve drugs if the benefits outweigh any potential risks. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Heather Wright. Coming up, striking a blow to the vote.
Anyone who does require some assistance with voting, we will be opening a hotline.
How the Canada Post pause is impacting politics. One of the biggest American video game companies in the world is being taken private in the largest leveraged buyout in stock market history. The deal for Electronic Arts is worth more than $50 billion US, with funding from Saudi Arabia and an investment firm backed by President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. EA is the creator of some of the industry's most popular video games, including Madden, The Sims, and many more. And what the deal means for the company's Canadian offices in Quebec, Ontario, Alberta, and BC is not clear. Ottawa is urging Canada Post to table a new offer after workers with CUPE walked out, objecting to sweeping changes to how the Crown Corporation operates. Business owners are feeling the impact of a postal strike. So too are plans to elect new political leaders in the East. CTV's Maria Saru is near a picket line in PEI. Okay, Maria, talk to us about those leadership challenges.
Well, Sandy, voting started today in PEI's Liberal leadership race, but there's been a last-minute pivot in the process. Voting is electronic, so members need PIN numbers, which the party planned to send to some via mail, but that's not an option anymore.
We have to stand fast. We're for the public. It's not just for us. It's not like we're not greedy postal workers. We're here for the public.
The PEI Liberal Party says this impacts a minority, about 15%, who will get phone calls instead.
For anyone who does require some assistance with voting, we will be opening a hotline.
It's not just the island feeling the friction. In Newfoundland and Labrador, the strike comes in the middle of municipal and provincial elections. Some mail-in ballots were stuck in limbo until the St. John's local stepped off the line to retrieve them from a processing plant. They were handed over to city workers this morning, but the National Union says this shouldn't be an expected practice. And back here in Charlottetown, the workers behind me say they're not budging. Okay. Sandy.
All right, Maria. Still ahead, a long-awaited apology. The compensation Saskatchewan is offering for historic wrongs. Saskatchewan has apologized to former students of a boarding school, agreeing to pay millions in restitution to survivors. The group says they face similar atrocities to those in residential schools, but were left out of previous settlements. CTV's Alison Bamford is with us. And Alison, what does Premier Moe's apology mean?
Sandy, on the eve of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, finally some closure for the Isle La Crosse school survivors. For decades, they've fought to have their physical, mental, and sexual abuse acknowledged. And today, the Saskatchewan Premier offered this.
Simply put, these schools were a mistake, and they shouldn't have existed. And today, on behalf of the province of Saskatchewan, I apologize to you.
The Isle La Crosse school operated for more than a century, from 1860 to the 1970s, first established by a missionary congregation of the Roman Catholic Church. The school predated the federal residential school system, and because of that, was left out of the 2006 Indian Residential Schools Settlement Agreement. About 1,500 students, most of them Métis kids from northern Saskatchewan, attended the school in Isle La Crosse, roughly 460 kilometers north of Saskatoon. Students say they were stripped of their language and culture and abused. Along with today's apology, Premier Scott Moe announced an agreement in principle that will pay $40 million in compensation to former students and their families. In March, Isle La Crosse school survivors reached a similar agreement with the federal government to pay $27 million in compensation, along with $10 million in a legacy fund. Survivors say the school caused 7 generations worth of harm, and now the community needs to heal for the next 7 generations. Sandy?
All right, Alison, thank you. After the break, the field day over the Blue Jays, covering all the bases as fan excitement reaches a fever pitch. Puerto Rican music superstar Bad Bunny is set to perform on one of the biggest stages in the world, headlining the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show. The three-time Grammy winner has topped Spotify's most streamed artist list in 3 of the past 5 years and just wrapped up a historic residency in Puerto Rico. The announcement follows a recent interview where the artist said he was avoiding the U.S. on his current world tour because of concerns that ICE agents might raid concert venues. Well, Canada's boys of summer, the Toronto Blue Jays, are officially soaring into the postseason after a big win yesterday, and fans across the country are certainly feeling the excitement. CTV's Sean Leathong caught up with some of them downtown and joins us now. Hey, Sean.
Sandy, it was the first time the Blue Jays clinched the AL East in 10 years, and the first time they've clinched the division at home since 1992. And that has fans hoping they will match their World Series title from that same season. A celebration a decade in the making. The Toronto Blue Jays are American League East champions.
It's a very fulfilling feeling because this group is so close. And, you know, it's the first division title in a long time here, so I'm happy for every fan in the city.
Clinching the division at home on the last day of the season is a statement, but not an ending, according to Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
I love this team and I love the city, so I feel so happy to win with this city.
Where do we go from here?
Job is not finished, so we got to keep going and we got to keep winning.
Now that the champagne has dried up, there's a new phrase surrounding this team. We want it all, as fans continue to revel in the excitement.
Absolutely awesome. They deserved it. They worked hard and they ground all season long, got the finish they needed.
Inside the Jays shop, merchandise marking the division champs is going fast.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6 shirts and a hat, bring back to the family, and we're all really excited about the postseason.
Divisional champs. My dad was wearing the one from 2015 last night, so I had to get him a new one.
Gotta get it updated, eh?
Yeah.
Many of the fans in here were at yesterday's game, and they came from across Canada, like David and Jim Flather from Winnipeg, who attended their first ever home game.
Unbelievable. We show up for our first game and there's a grand slam. I mean, what are the odds? I mean, and it was a great game. They just keep giving it.
Along with 8-year-old Isaac and 11-year-old Alex Fairhurst from Calgary, who have a positive outlook for the playoffs. How far can they go?
Really far.
World Series?
Yep.
What do you think?
World Series as well.
The road to the World Series starts here in the Divisional Series on Saturday. The Blue Jays' opponents will be their division rivals, the Boston Red Sox or the New York Yankees. Sandy.
All right, World Series, here we come. Sean, thank you. And thank you for sharing your time with us on this Monday before the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Your local CTV News is coming up. Bye for now. Be well.